The desperate cry. The distant stars twinkled in the cold void of space, but on the planet below, darkness was falling quickly. The landscape was harsh and unforgiving, full of towering cliffs and jagged rocks, with winds howling through the crevices. The air was thick and carried the stench of danger. This was no ordinary planet, and its inhabitants had learned long ago how to survive in its cruel environment. But even they were no match for the trap that had taken her mother down, an alien child. No older than 6, huddled in the dark, her eyes wide with fear. Her small hands gripped the rough ground beneath her as she tried to steady herself. She had been alone for what felt like forever, but the truth was only hours had passed since the terrible event. Hours that felt like a lifetime. She had watched in horror as her mother was captured by the ancient trap. The snare was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was a relic of an old civilization, one long lost to time. The trap had snapped shut with a deafening noise, trapping her mother in its deadly grasp. The child had tried everything she could think of, calling out, pulling at the chains, trying to break the barrier, but nothing had worked. Her mother was still there, struggling, but the trap was unyielding. Desperation filled the child's heart as she looked around. She could see no one. There was no one here to help, no one to save her or her mother. The only solution, the only hope, lay far beyond this planet, out in the cold reaches of space. Humans, she had heard stories, tales of brave humans who had traveled through the stars, fighting impossible battles and winning against all odds. They were the stuff of legends. And in that moment, the child knew that her only hope was to call them. With trembling hands, she reached for the small, battered device she had found in the ruins of the ancient city. It was not much, just a simple communication device, something used by the ancients to send messages across vast distances. It had taken the child days to repair it, working with the little knowledge she had, but now it was ready. She didn't know if it would work. She didn't know if anyone would hear. But it was the only chance they had. Her voice, small and shaky, filled the silence. "Human, you're our last hope," she whispered, her words trembling with fear and desperation. "My mother is caught in a trap. Please help us." The words seemed to hang in the air, their weight sinking deep into her heart. Would anyone hear her? Would anyone answer? The child's fingers hovered over the device, but she hesitated. She had never known a human personally, never met one in her short life. All she had were the stories. The stories of humans saving others, of them being the heroes in tales passed down through generations. She didn't know if they were true, but she had no other choice. This was their only hope. Tears began to roll down her cheeks as she pressed the button again, repeating the message. "Please," she begged. "Human, please. You're our last hope." There was a long pause. The device buzzed with static, then crackled. The signal was weak, fading in and out. The child's heart raced, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. If she gave up now, her mother would be lost forever. She could hear her mother's faint cries in the distance, calling her name, her voice strained and full of pain. "Please, help us." The child cried once more, her voice growing stronger with each plea. For a moment, there was only silence, the kind that echoed deep in the child's chest. It was as if the whole universe had paused, holding its breath. The static buzzed louder. But the child didn't give up. She kept the device pressed against her trembling lips, hoping, wishing, praying that someone, anyone would hear her. Then, just as she was about to give up, a faint response crackled through the device. It was distorted, but there was no mistaking the sound of a human voice. "This is human, can hear you. The child's eyes widened. It was them, the humans. They had heard her. The hope that had seemed so distant, so impossible, now burned bright in her heart. She wasn't alone anymore. "I can help," the voice said. Clearer now, though still faint. "Where are you? What happened to your mother?" The child's heart soared with relief, They were coming. They were going to help. She wasn't alone anymore. The humans were coming to save them. With trembling hands, she guided the device closer to her mouth and spoke quickly. "My mother is caught in the trap, deep in the mountains. Please hurry. I can't do this alone." The static hummed again as the voice on the other end processed her words. "Stay where you are," the human voice said firmly. "Help is on the way." And with that, the child felt a sense of peace wash over her for the first time in hours. The humans were coming. There was hope. Her mother would be saved. But even as the child allowed herself to relax for the first time, she knew the journey ahead would not be easy. The planet was treacherous, and danger lurked in every corner. But the child was no longer alone. The humans were on their way, and they were her last hope. The signal reaches Earth. The cold vastness of space was both beautiful and terrifying. For most humans, it was a place of mystery, an endless sea of stars and galaxies beyond comprehension. But for Alex Hunter, a seasoned deep space explorer, it was home. He had spent years navigating the unknown, charting distant planets, and solving mysteries that no one else dared to touch. Yet nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to hear. It was a quiet evening as Alex sat in his cramped, dimly lit cabin aboard his ship, the Endeavour. The hum of the engines was the only sound as the ship coasted through a vast stretch of empty space. He had just finished checking the ship's systems when a sudden crackle pierced the silence. It was faint at first, almost imperceptible, a signal buried in the static. But Alex had been trained to listen for the faintest of whispers. He leaned forward in his seat, eyes narrowing in focus. The signal repeated, breaking through the noise of space with desperate clarity. "Human, you're our last hope," a voice said, trembling but full of raw, unfiltered emotion. "My mother is caught in a trap. Please, help us." Alex's heart skipped a beat. He had heard plenty of distress signals before, mostly from the usual channels, ship-to-ship communications or emergency beacons. But this was different. The voice wasn't just asking for help, it was begging. It was a child, and it wasn't from any human colony he recognized. He quickly activated his comm system, replaying the message again. His fingers hovered over the console as his mind raced. "Last hope," the child had said. Could this be a trap? A message from an enemy species? It was possible, though unlikely. No one had heard from alien civilizations in this part of the galaxy for centuries. But as the static continued, Alex's instinct told him this wasn't a trick. There was something about the desperation in the child's voice that struck a chord deep within him. It was raw, it was real, and it was the kind of plea he couldn't ignore. Without wasting another moment, Alex punched in the coordinates of the signal. He didn't know who these aliens were, or what their planet was like, but he had no choice now. The child had called for help, and that was enough for him. His ship had always been a lifeline for those in need, and that role wasn't about to change. As he plotted a course for the unknown planet, Alex thought about the endless stars outside his window. He had spent years traveling through deep space, crossing light years with little more than the hum of the engines and the occasional star to keep him company. But this was something different. This was a chance to make a difference, to answer a cry for help when no one else would. The journey would take days, possibly weeks, depending on the conditions. He knew the risks. He had made dangerous trips before, but this one felt different. He wasn't sure why, but something deep inside told him that this mission would change him in ways he couldn't yet understand. As the ship began its course toward the distant planet, Alex's mind wandered to the child's message. He imagined the small alien face, frightened yet hopeful, speaking into the comms device, believing against all odds that a human would come to their rescue. The weight of that belief settled on his shoulders, and he felt an unfamiliar sense of responsibility. "Stay where you are," Alex muttered to himself, repeating the last words of the message. He knew the child couldn't hear him, But he said it anyway. "I'm coming. Just hang on." The ship accelerated into warp speed, leaving the known universe behind and diving into the vast unknown. The stars outside blurred into streaks of light, and the engine's hum turned into a steady pulse, matching the beat of Alex's heart. As the planet slowly grew larger on his radar, he couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was more than just a rescue. It was a test of humanity's strength, compassion, and willingness to help those in need, no matter where they came from. The next few days were filled with careful preparation. Alex went over his equipment, checked the ship's systems, and studied everything he could about the planet's atmosphere. But no matter how much he prepared, nothing could prepare him for what awaited on the surface. He didn't even know if there would be anyone to meet him when he arrived. The uncertainty of it all weighed heavily on him, but it was a burden he was willing to carry. He had no doubt that humans were capable of extraordinary things, and if this child's message was anything to go by, humanity had the power to change lives across the galaxy. As the days turned into nights, and the planet drew ever closer, Alex couldn't help but feel the weight of his decision. He wasn't just answering a distress signal. He was answering a call for humanity to be the heroes they were meant to be. And with every light year that passed, Alex couldn't help but wonder, what kind of people were these aliens, and what would they think of humans when they arrived? Would they be ready to trust him, or would they see him as just another outsider, another intruder in their world? He didn't know the answer yet, but one thing was certain. He was going to give them everything he had, and he wouldn't stop until the child's cry for help was answered. The journey begins. Alex had never been one to shy away from a challenge, but as the Endeavor cut through the endless expanse of space toward the unknown planet, annoying uncertainty began to creep in. The child's desperate message echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of the stakes. The weight of her plea, of her belief in humanity, was heavier than he could have imagined. He had always been a man of logic and reason, but this was something beyond that. This was a test of faith, not just in the child, but in the very idea of what it meant to be human. As the days passed in the isolation of the ship, Alex found himself wrestling with his own doubts. Would he truly be able to save this alien child? And her mother? Could a human really offer hope to a species so different, so far removed from anything humanity had ever encountered? He had no answers, but he knew that he couldn't turn back now. The child was depending on him. He spent hours poring over his ship's systems, running simulations, and preparing for every possible scenario. He checked and double-checked the supplies, the weapons, and the communication systems. He wanted to be ready for anything. He had made this journey alone before, but this was different. This wasn't just about exploration or discovery. It was about rescuing someone, about showing the galaxy that humans were capable of more than just survival. They were capable of compassion, of sacrifice, of being a beacon of light in the darkest corners of the universe. Despite his preparations, a lingering unease settled over him. The planet he was approaching was a mystery. There were no recorded maps, no data on the atmosphere, no knowledge of its inhabitants. The galaxy was vast, and uncharted planets were dangerous, especially for a lone human. There were risks in every corner of space, from hostile alien species to unpredictable natural phenomena. And yet, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was calling him to this place, something far more important than his own safety. The planet finally came into view. It was unlike any world Alex had seen before. The surface was a patchwork of jagged mountains and dark forests, covered in swirling mist. It looked inhospitable, even from the safety of space. Yet, in the center of it all, there was a glimmer of light, a soft, ethereal glow that seemed to pulse from deep within the planet, like a heartbeat from the Earth itself. Alex could only guess what it was, but he knew one thing. The alien child's message had come from somewhere within that glow. As the ship descended through the atmosphere, the air grew thick with tension. The first few minutes of entry were always the hardest, when the ship had to fight against the forces of gravity and turbulence. Alex held the controls steady, guiding the ship down through the swirling clouds. The surface below was getting closer, and the ground seemed to shift as though the planet itself was alive. He couldn't see anything yet, just shadows and the glow that beckoned him forward. The planet's atmosphere was dense, the air thick with moisture and strange particles. The sensors on his ship were going wild, picking up readings that were both unfamiliar and unsettling. There was no telling what kind of wildlife or dangers lurked below. But Alex didn't have the luxury of fear. He had made a promise, and he wasn't about to break it. His ship touched down with a soft thud, the engines powering down as the landing gear settled into the rocky ground. For a moment, there was only silence. The only sound was the hum of the ship's systems, slowly cooling down after the tense descent. Alex took a deep breath, his hand resting on the control panel as he prepared to step out of the ship and into the unknown. He opened the hatch and stepped out into the mist. The air was thick and heavy, filled with a strange scent that made his skin prickle. The ground beneath him was uneven, rocky, and barren, with twisted trees jutting out at odd angles. In the distance he could see the faint flicker of lights, perhaps from the ruins where the child had been trapped. As Alex adjusted his equipment, he felt a strange sensation. It was as though the planet itself was watching him, waiting for him to make his move. He had faced dangers before: alien beasts, hostile environments, treacherous landscapes, but this felt different. This wasn't just a place to explore. This was a place that would test everything he knew about being human. Taking his first steps onto the alien soil, Alex knew there was no turning back. The child had called for help, and he had come. He was about to face something far bigger than just an alien trap or a rescue mission. This was about humanity's place in the universe, about showing that, even in the darkest corners of space, there could be light. The air around him seemed to grow heavier with each step, the weight of his mission pressing down on him. He could hear the faint echoes of the child's voice in his mind. "Human, you're our last hope." And with every step forward, the message became clearer. Alex adjusted the strap of his pack, took one final look at the Endeavor, and set off toward the unknown, his resolve stronger than ever. The journey had only just begun, and already he felt that he was no longer just a man on a mission. He was a symbol of hope, a beacon in the darkness. The alien child had called for help, and he was determined to answer, no matter the cost. The unknown world, the Endeavor glided effortlessly through the thick atmosphere of the alien planet, its sleek hull slicing through the dense clouds as it descended. Below, the surface remained shrouded in mystery, only glimpses of its jagged terrain visible through the swirling mists. Alex Hunter had been to countless planets before, each with its own unique dangers and surprises, but this one felt different. It wasn't just the unknown landscape that unnerved him, but the unspoken weight of the mission. The child's plea had been clear: "Human, you're our last hope." The desperation in those words clung to him like a shadow, pulling him deeper into the heart of the unknown. But now, standing on the precipice of an alien world, Alex couldn't help but wonder what awaited him. What kind of civilization had left such a powerful message, and what kind of planet could be so dangerous that even a child felt the need to cry out for help? The ship touched down with a soft thud, and the atmosphere of the planet immediately felt oppressive, the air thick with an unfamiliar energy. Alex checked the readings on his console, no signs of hostile life forms yet, but there was something strange about the planet's magnetic field. It was as if the planet itself was alive, pulling at him, urging him to explore. "Let's get this over with," Alex muttered under his breath, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to the ship, to the planet, or to himself. He made his way to the ship's hatch, the doors hissing open to reveal a landscape unlike any he had ever seen. The mist was thick, swirling in patterns that seemed to have no natural origin. almost as if it was alive. Strange trees, their branches twisted into impossible shapes, loomed in the distance. The air was thick with moisture, and the ground was uneven, rocks protruding from the earth like jagged teeth. As Alex stepped onto the planet's surface, his boots sinking slightly into the soft, spongy ground, he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The child's message rang in his ears. The quiet desperation in her voice had become a part of him, fueling every step he took. The mission was clear: find the child and her mother, get them out, and make it back to the ship. Simple, or so it seemed. He activated his helmet's comm system, opening a direct line to the ship, but the connection was weak. Static crackled in his ear, and the voice of the ship's I was faint. "Alex, you have arrived. The signal is weak, but I will be monitoring your progress. Be cautious." "I will," he responded, his voice steady, though the knot in his stomach was anything but calm. The alien planet seemed to pulse with an energy he couldn't quite explain, as if the very soil beneath his feet was alive and watching him. He had studied the planet's basic structure before landing, but there were gaps, large, concerning gaps. The planet had no recorded history. No one had explored it in centuries, if ever. And now, it was up to him to unravel its mysteries, all while searching for an alien child and her mother, who were no doubt facing unimaginable dangers. Adjusted his pack and surveyed the landscape. The strange mist was thicker now, swirling around him like an unnatural fog, and the distant trees seemed to beckon him forward. The child's message had come from somewhere within the deep forests, beyond the mountains that loomed in the distance. His path was set, but with every step forward, the sense of being watched grew stronger. Something was out there. He could feel it. "Stay focused," he whispered to himself. The cold, alien world was unsettling, but it was nothing compared to the challenges he had faced in his long career as a deep space explorer. He had survived asteroid fields, hostile wildlife, and even shipwrecks. This was just another mission, another world to conquer. Still, as the mist curled around his feet and the wind howled through the twisted trees, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. He pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task at hand. The alien child's cries still echoed in his mind, and he couldn't allow himself to be distracted. Minutes passed as he moved deeper into the mist. The silence of the world was broken only by the sound of his boots crunching against the uneven ground and the distant rustling of alien creatures hidden in the underbrush. He paused to check his scanner. The signal was weak but still active, flickering in and out. It was coming from a cluster of trees just ahead. Alex's heart quickened. He was close, he could feel it. The trees ahead began to shift, their twisted branches creaking in the wind. But there was something else, something that didn't belong. Movement. Shadows that seemed to follow him, not from the trees, but from the mist itself. "Keep it together," Alex muttered, his fingers tightening around the hilt of his weapon. He had been in plenty of dangerous situations before, but this felt different. The planet wasn't just a physical challenge. It was getting into his head. He could feel the weight of the child's cry hanging in the air like a storm cloud, ready to burst. With one last deep breath, Alex stepped forward into the forest. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it. For the child. For the mother. For humanity. But as he ventured deeper into the eerie woods, the feeling of being watched only intensified. Something or someone was waiting for him. Planet of danger. The air was thick with tension as Alex pushed deeper into the alien forest, his every step echoing through the eerie silence that surrounded him. The mist that clung to the ground seemed to grow heavier with each passing minute. A thick blanket that clouded his vision and dampened the sounds of the planet. Every twisted tree and jagged rock loomed like an obstacle, a warning to anyone foolish enough to wander too far. And yet, Alex pressed on, his resolve stronger than ever. The signal from the alien child was still weak, flickering in and out, leading him deeper into the heart of the forest. The terrain was treacherous, and the air felt dense, almost oppressive. But Alex had come too far to turn back now. The child's voice, fragile, but filled with hope, still rang in his ears, urging him forward. Ahead of him, the forest seemed to shift, the shadows between the trees deepening and becoming more pronounced. The world felt alive in a way he couldn't quite explain. It wasn't just the wind rustling through the leaves or the eerie calls of creatures hidden in the distance. It was as if the entire planet was watching him, judging him, testing him. A sudden movement in the corner of his vision caught his attention. He froze, every muscle tensed. His hand went instinctively to the weapon at his side, but before he could react, a strange, low growl reverberated through the air. It was unlike anything he'd heard before, deep, guttural, and filled with a primal, menacing force. The trees around him seemed to close in, their gnarled branches twisting like fingers reaching for him. He wasn't alone. Alex's breath hitched. As the sound grew louder, closer, he scanned the area, trying to pinpoint the source of the noise. His heart pounded in his chest as he realized he was surrounded. Whatever was lurking in the shadows was moving in for the kill. Then, from the mist, a shape emerged, large, hulking, and covered in a layer of dark matted fur. Its eyes gleamed with an unnatural intelligence, watching Alex with an intensity that made his skin crawl. It was a predator, and it had been watching him for some time. The creature's massive jaws parted, revealing rows of sharp teeth, and it let out a low, ferocious growl, sending a chill down Alex's spine. He had no idea what it was, but he knew one thing for sure: it wasn't going to let him pass without a fight. Alex's mind raced. He had faced wild beasts before, alien and terrestrial, but nothing like this. The creature's size alone made it a formidable opponent, and the alien terrain only added to the danger. His ship was too far to reach in time, and the forest was dense and unyielding. He was trapped. The creature took another step forward, its massive form shifting with predatory grace. It was circling him now, eyes fixed on his every movement. He couldn't outrun it, and there was no time to call for backup. It was just him, alone, with a creature that could rip him to shreds in seconds. "Stay calm," Alex whispered to himself, trying to steady his breath. He had been in dangerous situations before, but this was different. The alien world seemed to be conspiring against him at every turn. The creature lunged forward with a terrifying speed, its claws slashing through the air. Alex ducked just in time, the claws grazing the side of his armor with a sickening screech. He stumbled backward, scrambling for footing as the beast came at him again. Faster this time, adrenaline flooded his system as Alex activated his weapon, a high-powered plasma rifle. He took aim, trying to steady his shaking hands, but the creature was too close. He fired, the blast cutting through the air with a sharp hiss, but the creature was already moving. It darted to the side, narrowly avoiding the shot. Alex cursed. Under his breath, the creature wasn't just fast, it was intelligent. It was learning his moves, adapting to his every action. His rifle might be powerful, but in a close-quarter fight like this, it wouldn't be enough. He had to think quickly. Alex dropped to the ground, rolling to his left just as the creature's claws slashed down where he had been standing moments before. Using the momentum, he scrambled to his feet, finding a nearby rock to put between him and the creature. It was a small advantage, but it gave him a moment to think. His heart raced, and his mind raced faster. He wasn't just fighting for his life. He was fighting to reach the alien child, to fulfill a promise he had made. He had come too far to die now. The creature was growling low, pacing back and forth, but it hadn't made another move yet. It was waiting, studying him, waiting for him to make a mistake. Alex's breath was shallow, but his mind cleared. He needed to outsmart it, not just outfight it. He grabbed a rock from the ground, hurling it in the opposite direction of where he planned to move. The creature's head snapped in the direction of the noise, and for just a second, Alex saw his opening dot with all his strength. He bolted, running at full speed toward the nearest cluster of trees, using the thick trunks to shield him as he pushed forward. The creature roared in frustration, its claws scraping against the earth as it charged after him. Alex didn't look back. He couldn't afford to. But as he ran, one thought pounded in his mind. If he could make it past this beast, he would be closer to the child. He would be closer to saving them both. The chase had only just begun, and the planet was only revealing a fraction of the dangers it had in store for him. The final fight, the ground trembled beneath Alex's boots as the last echoes of the trap's collapse faded into the eerie silence of the alien forest. The mother, still weak but determined, grasped Alex's arm, her fingers tight with fear. The look in her eyes was enough to tell him they were far from safe. Something was coming, something that could make the creatures they had already encountered seem insignificant by comparison. Before they could take a step, the forest around them seemed to shift. The air grew heavier, almost suffocating, and a low, guttural growl reverberated through the trees. Alex's breath caught in his throat. This was no ordinary creature, it was something bigger, something far more dangerous. His instincts screamed at him to act, but before he could even raise his weapon, the trees in front of them splintered, and from the shadows emerged a massive, towering figure, a creature unlike any Alex had seen before. It was an enormous beast, a blend of alien features that seemed to defy logic. Its sleek, armored body was covered in thick reptilian scales that shimmered in the dim light. Its eyes, glowing a fierce yellow, locked onto Alex with predatory intent. The creature's jaws were lined with jagged teeth, and its claws scraped the ground with a chilling screech. It was tall, easily towering over Alex by several meters, and as it moved toward them, the ground cracked under its weight. This was no animal, this was a guardian, a sentinel created to protect the planet from invaders like him. The mother gasped, pulling back in terror. "It's the Warden," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It guards the sacred lands. Nothing survives its wrath." Alex's mind raced. The Warden. It wasn't just a creature, it was a protector, a living embodiment of the planet's defense mechanism, and it was now aware of their presence. There was no negotiation, no reasoning with it. It was here to destroy anything that threatened the planet. And at that moment, Alex and the mother were its only target. Without thinking, Alex stepped in front of her, raising his weapon as the Warden let out a bone-shaking roar. The sound of it made the ground vibrate, and the air seemed to thicken with every breath it took. The creature took a step forward, then another, each movement calculated, its massive claws leaving deep impressions in the dirt. He aimed the plasma rifle, taking a deep breath before firing. The shot exploded in a burst of bright energy, striking the Warden square in the chest. The creature staggered back, but only for a moment. The plasma hit, but it didn't penetrate. The Warden's thick scales absorbed the impact like it was nothing. Alex cursed under his breath. His weapon wouldn't be enough to bring down such a beast. The creature charged, moving with terrifying speed despite its size. Alex barely had time to react as the Warden's claws slashed through the air, aiming straight for him. He dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the deadly strike, but the ground beneath him cracked open, sending him tumbling into the dirt. The Warden roared again, its teeth bared in a vicious grin, and Alex's heart raced as he scrambled to his feet. It was relentless. Every time he thought he could escape, the beast closed the distance faster than he could anticipate. "Get back!" Alex shouted to the mother, his voice sharp with urgency. She didn't hesitate. She ran toward the cover of the trees, but the Warden was faster. It turned its attention toward her, its eyes narrowing as it focused on its next prey. "Stay back!" Alex yelled, pushing himself to his feet and rushing toward the Warden, weapon raised. But the creature was already in motion, its massive tail swinging around like a battering ram, knocking Alex to the side with brutal force. He hit the ground hard, the air knocked from his lungs. Pain flared in his ribs, but there was no time to think about it. The warden was closing in on the mother, its claws outstretched, ready to strike. Alex knew he had only one shot left. The creature's armor was nearly impenetrable, but its eyes, those glowing yellow eyes, were a weakness. He had to get close enough to hit them. Without another second to waste, Alex pushed himself up, ignoring the pain in his body, and sprinted toward the warden, using the trees for cover. The warden's attention was fixed on the mother, and Alex saw his opening. He dove to the side, rolling behind the creature just as it lunged at her. With a swift motion, Alex aimed his rifle, focusing all his energy on the creature's eyes. He fired. The blast struck true. The warden's scream of pain was deafening as it stumbled back, clawing at its face, its eyes disintegrating under the force of the blast. It roared in fury, thrashing wildly as it tried to shake off the pain. Alex didn't hesitate. He rushed forward, using every ounce of strength he had left to push the beast backward. It staggered, weakened by the attack, but it wasn't finished yet. With a final furious swipe of its claw, it swung at Alex, catching him across the chest and sending him flying through the air. He hit the ground hard, blood trickling from the wound on his side. His vision blurred, but through the haze, he saw the warden beginning to collapse, its massive body shaking violently. With one final, earth-shattering roar, the creature fell to the ground dead. For a moment, all was still. The forest was silent, as if holding its breath. Alex could barely move. His body ached, his vision was fading, but he knew he had to make sure the mother was safe. With all the strength he had left, he dragged himself to his feet and stumbled toward her. She was shaken, but alive. "We're not done yet," Alex said, his voice hoarse. "We need to move now." And as they turned to leave, Alex knew this wasn't the end of the journey. The planet had shown its first true danger, but there would be more to face. They hadn't escaped yet. The victory and return, the once oppressive air of the alien planet, now seemed to breathe a little easier as Alex and the mother, bruised but alive, began to move toward the ship. Behind them, the still form of the warden lay motionless, a testament to their struggle and the victory that had cost them more than either had anticipated. But there was no time to rest. Danger lurked in every corner of this world, and though they had faced the worst of it, they still weren't out of the woods. Alex could feel the weight of the journey settling on his shoulders as they walked through the mist, his legs aching with each step. His side was bleeding from the warden's final swipe, but it wasn't just the physical pain that weighed on him. It was the knowledge that they weren't truly free yet. The planet still held its secrets, its dangers, and the trek back to the Endeavor would not be without its own challenges. The mother, though weakened, kept pace beside him, her expression a mix of relief and disbelief. Every few steps she would glance at him, as if checking to make sure he was still there, still real. She had witnessed horrors on this planet, more than most would in a lifetime. Her trust in Alex had been absolute from the moment he arrived. But now she was starting to believe that humanity might just be their salvation. "Do you think we're truly safe?" she asked softly, her voice a whisper carried by the wind. "This planet, it doesn't let go so easily." Alex didn't answer right away. He knew what she meant. This world had a way of pulling at you, making you feel as though you were never far from danger, no matter how far you ran. The warden was dead, but something told him the planet wasn't done with them yet. They'd made it this far, but would the journey back be as easy? "We'll be safe when we're off this rock," Alex said, his voice steady despite the weariness in his bones. "The ship is ready and will be gone before this planet can do anything else." But even as he spoke, something in the air shifted. It was subtle at first, just a faint vibration, like a tremor beneath his feet. Alex stopped walking, his senses immediately alert. The mother paused too, her brow furrowed in confusion. "Do you feel that?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. Before Alex could answer, the ground trembled more violently, the mist around them swirling in a sudden violent gust. It wasn't just the wind, it was the planet itself, as if it had sensed their departure and was now fighting back. The trees around them began to shake, their branches creaking and groaning under the pressure of the shifting earth. Alex's heart raced as the ground cracked open beneath them. The air was thick with the sound of tearing rock, and the forest seemed to come alive in a way he hadn't seen before. The once still trees were now moving, their roots writhing like serpents beneath the earth. "Run!" Alex shouted, grabbing the mother's arm and pulling her along as the ground buckled beneath them. The mist was no longer just a strange fog, it had become a storm, swirling violently around them, as if the planet itself was rejecting their presence. Alex could feel the weight of the Earth's anger pressing down on them, and he knew they had only moments to escape before everything came crashing down. They sprinted toward the Endeavor, but with every step, the ground seemed to shift beneath them. The trees were no longer just obstacles, they were falling, crashing to the ground, blocking their path. The sky above them darkened, and a deep, ominous rumble echoed through the air. "Keep moving," Alex shouted, pushing the mother forward as he scanned the distance for the ship. It was still a ways off, and time was running out. The earth split open once more, a jagged chasm opening up just feet from them. Alex's heart skipped a beat as the edge of the crevice came dangerously close to swallowing them whole. But they couldn't stop, not now, not when they were so close. With one final burst of strength, Alex grabbed the mother and pulled her across the last stretch of ground. The Endeavor loomed ahead, its sleek hull cutting through the chaos of the planet like a beacon. They were almost there. Alex didn't look back as they reached the ship. His hands were shaking as he punched in the sequence to open the hatch. And within seconds, the doors slid open. They both scrambled inside, the ship's engines humming to life as Alex quickly sealed the hatch behind them. The planet's fury continued to rage outside, but inside the ship, Alex allowed himself a moment of relief. They had made it. Against all odds, they had escaped the grasp of a dying world. As the Endeavor ascended, the turbulent surface of the planet faded into the distance. The ground below still trembled, but it was no longer their concern. They were free. The child and her mother were safe, and Alex had kept his promise. Humanity had come through when it mattered most. The mother collapsed into a seat, exhaustion written all over her face, and for the first time since their encounter, she smiled. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. "You saved us." Alex sat beside her, his body aching, but a deep sense of fulfillment settled over him. "I just did what anyone would do," he replied quietly, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. "I couldn't leave you to face this alone." The stars outside twinkled in the vastness of space, and for the first time, Alex felt the true weight of what he had accomplished. He hadn't just saved lives. He had proved that humanity could be a beacon of hope, no matter how distant or alien the world. As the Endeavor surged forward, heading back toward the unknown, Alex knew that this was just the beginning. There would be more planets to save, more lives to change. But for now, as the planet disappeared behind them, he allowed himself to savor the moment of victory. They were safe, and the universe was a little brighter for it.